Next one. Okay, welcome to Computational Craft, one footwear designer's quest to replace himself. I'm going to kind of situate this clickbaity title. You'll have to kind of, hold on until the end, and I'll take you on a journey of 2 design stories, and we'll see if I end up succeeding in replacing myself. Not, existentially, because I'm here, but we're all thinking about it. How do these computational tools affect where we're going to be in our careers in the future? So quick retrospective, this is a snapshot of me as an industrial design student, getting a classical industrial design education, sketching with markers, then sketching with an iPad when the iPad Pro came out, and making physical prototypes. I really wanted to work in footwear and was trying to find a way in. It was fun seeing Carbon's presentation because when their collaborative shoe with Adidas came out, that is what kind of first put computational design on my radar. Never heard of it before. My professors weren't talking about it. And anyway, I saw all those lattices and I was like, there's no way that someone is doing this by hand the way that I'm designing everything. What is this? What do I do? So I dive into the internet, dive into the Grasshopper McNeil forums and start reading about it and absorbing everything that I can. So this is kind of where it starts, where I get this idea in my head about maybe I can replace what I think of as my role as a designer. Maybe I can be, maybe I can design the process instead. I can design, I can design the black box, as we were hearing earlier, and maybe I can even get lost in it. And that would be maybe it was a lack of confidence as a student about being I can, maybe I'm not a great designer, but maybe I can design something that will be a great designer. So this was me as a student, human in the middle, the design space represented by this triangle, and the heat map being kind of my explorations with design tools, 2D sketching, manual CAD, physical prototyping, whatever parameters you want to put on the space. These are pretty common ones in footwear or commercial product generally, cost, function, and aesthetic. As I kind of got to the end of my degree and I was just, self-teaching all these new computational design skills, just kind of reaching for the lowest hanging fruit that I could find, oh, Voronoi, great, what's that, randomly populating a piece of geometry with points, what can I do with that? What I found was that my experience kind of in this design space was changing, that I was getting kind of extended in a way, or I was realizing that there were parts of the space that I hadn't even thought of exploring before. So, I was still trying to keep myself at the center of it. Anyway, the other interesting thing is that it also started to change, getting into computational design from an industrial design background was changing how I even thought about the space itself. So a lot of what happened is it brought, for the first time, it kind of brought data into my design process, which before had been kind of very Bauhaus, aesthetic driven about I dream of beautiful platonic forms and I kind of draw them beautifully. And it made it messier, but it also made the space bigger and kind of represented in this 3-dimensional jump. And so this is kind of the story of what got me enamored with this and started my march into computational design. And I'm going to kind of contextualize that in 2 design stories from some commercial products that you may have seen on the market. If you've run in them, find me afterwards, and I'll give you a high five and thank you for keeping me employed. But anyway, so this is the Fresh Foam More V4. It was a really early project right when I arrived kind of out of school, arrived at New Balance, wanted to show them my hybrid computational craft approach of saying I'm gonna design something that designs the things. So one of the first things that I wanted to do once I got access to our sports research lab data about all sorts of biometric data, foot strikes and things, is just make a dynamic visualization, because I'm I have Grasshopper at my fingertips, I can do this now. All of our graphs and things were kind of more static nature and really informative, as graphs are, but I was thinking oh, it's motion, and also I'll impress some people and maybe I'll learn something. So I put together this ground force reaction kind of vector data thing just for me to look at to show to other people at the company and see if there's I wanted to learn something because I hadn't done any footwear before. Professionally. So the thing that I noticed from this was that there was way more pressure in the kind of midfoot stance part of the foot strike than I'd expected. I was kind of if you're heel striking, you hit on your heel, you push off on your toe, that's where the pressure is. But as all your body weight kind of shifts over your foot, that's a really high pressure zone of the shoe. There's a lot of downward force, and it's also traditionally, if you look at your own shoes, it's the narrowest part of the shoe, so you've got the least amount of material under it. So I kind of tucked that away. I said, oh, maybe I can use that. Again, an example of how the kind of data design space, how that data design space was expanding my own capabilities as a designer. It's not something I would have noticed before. So about this time, I got put on a team. We got a design brief that said we want to make our thickest midsole yet, and we want it to be the softest midsole ever, that we've ever made. And the first thing I thought was like, oh, is that going to be like a little unstable if there's a lot of material, you're high off the ground, and it's really soft? So this insight kind of kicked in. And I was excited to say, oh, this is it. Like I can design the black box. I can be a computational designer, like what I thought of at the time. I can replace myself. So I just kind of flipped the data set of the ground reaction forces on its side and said, let's let this define the bottom of the shoe. And wide bases are stable. A stable structure has a wide base. That'll be great. It'll be more stable. So this is, a quick kind of quick and dirty pseudocode of I was, importing a last and doing some things to find, basically like a lot of mesh generation steps and representation of this data set and getting this really kind of fun but weird kind of midfoot stability platform out of this. And so I was excited about this, but it's a lot different than, I was like, oh, I think the data is suggesting this, I should do it. But, I needed to kind of sell the design team on it. And luckily, in some of my other explorations, again, like I said, I was kind of, as I was learning to be a computational designer, reaching for what's the next thing that I can reach at least, because I was like starting to see simulation and FEA stuff and saying, oh, can I do that? And turns out, oh, I can't do that at the level of, like Jesus having the car crash background. But at that point, I was like, well, I think I can do it in 2D, and maybe I can kind of do it like a soft body simulation in an animation software. And maybe there's still some overlap there. So, young, maybe a little bit naive, and went for it. So I'd already kind of done these tests on like little cube cross sections, and I had a wide base one, and I said, okay, let's take that and let's scale that up, to a cross section of a shoe, because I wanted to try to persuade the team to say, make this weird shaped shoe. It's wider in a weird place, but that will make the foot more stable. So I have kind of a vertical control cross section here. We're pushing it side to side, just this cross section of the shoe, and then the flared base. You can see they're kind of superimposed over each other. And what I felt like, again, my kind of rough simulation was telling me was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. That wide base will be a lot more stable. Here's again a little quick kind of behind the scenes of, I mean, a lot of you are familiar with this. I don't really need to explain it, but just, I'm getting into Grasshopper and Kangaroo and saying, okay, how do I break things down into elements? How do I make sure those elements try to hold their shape? How do I apply forces? So it was, kind of a big stretch, again, a big stretch for me at the time, and I learned a lot. And this is where I kind of started hitting the wall of replacing myself, that I was like, okay, I have this thing, but it actually kind of looks a little bit slow and a little bit weird. Like, I think I need to kind of find, like not fight this tension with my design education, my industrial design education, but like lean into it and do some, do some modeling on my own, and kind of make this form look faster. Make it kind of more commercial, like something that consumers are going to be drawn to. So I kind of took the underlying model and sleeked it up, tried to make it look fast, tried to make it look like a desirable object. We've kind of all been, if you work in design at all, especially for consumer products, you've been there. You're kind of trying to think of the consumer. So you can kind of see the development from the early kind of footprint of this to my more sleeked up version, trying to keep that midfoot stability platform, and then to the kind of final, textured version with all the extra details that we put on it. That's, there's a little kernel there of the idea. This is also, you're always like compromising as you work with other experts who are saying like, oh, we need to change this for this reason and that for that reason. You're, trying to keep a little bit of your idea in there. So the midfoot stability platform survived, and the kind of that cross-section simulation that I was showing you earlier also kind of survived and got us interested in this kind of grooved underfoot, because I showed these cross-sections and it was like, oh, interesting, maybe we can core this out. So that also, groovy ride. We took a lot of foam out of the bottom of this also very wide shoe, and it made it even softer and kind of like helped you land on the ground softly. And that did well in testing, so that ended up being part of the final product as well, which you can see a little glamour shot of here. And like I said, here's that original insight still hanging on there, and I think it came through pretty well in the final product, and you could feel it on the run. I put a lot of miles onto my pair. Showing some colorways of, this is kind of the payoff of this first design story. It got to be a trail shoe, which was great. My teammate Louis LeBlanc actually worked on this as well, kind of translating it to the trail. We did some cool collaborations with it. District Vision is like a run wellness company that we partner with sometimes. And it got, in the little shoe world of like people who are really into performance running shoes, this Believe in the Run blog is pretty big. They gave it an award of their best max cushion shoe of 2022. So again, kind of tying this first story together, I tried already to replace myself. I was like, yeah, it's just the data is going to design this. And kind of what I learned along the way was like, yeah, I do want the data to design this, but I couldn't get to this idea on my own, but the data couldn't get to like a really human-centered product on its own either. So there was this like nice creative tension that, I think, has been talked about a couple times before up on the stage today and that we're all familiar with. So I learned a lot from that. Didn't quite manage to replace myself, so maybe spoiling the ending a little bit there. I'll take you through one more kind of quick story. This one's a little more recent on the market. Really proud of this work from me and our team. This is the FuelCell Rebel V4. So this one came from a totally different area. I wasn't looking at data. We already had some really good fast shoes, good materials, good form, good shape, carbon plates and stuff. We were just looking for a way to kind of like visually represent how do we make this more progressive? How do we stand out from the market? So again, I'm like, well, I'm an industrial designer. I'm all about those visuals, and getting people's attention with a beautiful object. But anyway, so I said, great, I'll take this on, but maybe again, I'll kind of, take a computational approach to it. So we'd kind of done some exploration of more smooth, kind of traditional forms, but still trying to be more progressive. And at one point, I just took one of those, threw it into a Grasshopper script that I'd made that kind of chopped it up and made a kind of chiseled, planar, like randomized low poly version of it. The team was into it, which was, I don't know if a surprise, like I was into it, but it's always nice when someone likes your idea. And shout out again to Louis. We've been at New Balance about the same amount of time and worked on a lot of things together. He had this insight when we started developing this aesthetic of saying, oh, like we kind of keep the same overall shape, but as you start doing this like generated low poly facet thing, you lose a little bit of volume. And these are shoes made for running fast and volume equals weight. So, maybe that's a good thing. Like maybe that's something as we're pursuing this aesthetic, we can keep that in mind. How do we make that, maybe there's a functional story there as well that we can use internally, or maybe we can tell the consumers. We didn't end up telling that one to the consumers, but it was kind of helpful in driving the internal, it's like your North Star saying, we want to make these fast, we want to make these edgy, we want to make them light. So, kind of tested that out and started making examples to sell this idea to the team of saying like, look, we have this smoothing, we have this kind of generated grasshopper reduction into a low poly form, and then this is again where that tension came in, where it's like, okay, we could just stop at that middle step and just replace the designers, but saying like, let's maybe bring the designers in and use this as a template to give to them, and then say, keep this in mind, keep removing volume as you design like features that are going to look visually cool on the shoe. So again, kind of going back to this, like, we're exploring the design space. Data's not as big on this one, but we're chasing something aesthetic, we're discovering something functional, we're having a good time. This is the fun part of design. So yeah, some more kind of selling this to the team. Honestly, all of these, this is where I learned about how to do pseudocode in my kind of progression as a computational designer, of saying I have to explain this now to a lot of people, and they're people that I can't scroll through Grasshopper with and say, see, there's just these nodes and components. And so did a lot of coordinating with various teams, because again, we're saying, okay, we're going to do this look and we're going to do it on multiple shoes, and it's going to be a lot of work, so we're going to automate as much of it as we can in Grasshopper, and that's going to kind of give us our logical framework for how we design this aesthetic look, and hopefully this functional benefit of less weight. But then we are going to hand this off to designers, and we're going to kind of be a coach to them, and again, kind of live in this tensiony area between the two. So again, I love-hate relationship with pseudocode. Sometimes I don't like to explain my work, I just like to do it. So the kind of flagship model that we put this on was the Rebel. The Rebel V3 had done really well. The Rebel V2 had done really well. This is kind of our fast training shoe. So again, we put it through this process of saying, okay, let's get the generated low poly output, and then let's explore that creative tension. Let's replace parts of ourselves, but let's keep those really important human parts. So, I felt conflicted a lot during this, that I wanted to kind of break it down and say, I wanted to kind of build the black box again for making the decision and say, okay, like maybe I can just quantify this decision-making process of how much do we balance that, like the designer's intuition of what they want to do with the model and like the computational output that we're giving them of saying like, oh yeah, this is already reducing the volume, keep as much of this as possible. And in the end, I kind of realized that, again, I'm learning, so not an original realization, but I was like, oh, this is kind of what humans are always doing, like even 7,000 years BCE, like you're going between like, do I stencil my hand on the cave wall? Like that's really data, like that's like the real world, or do I do something really stylized where I have cool elongated limbs and, like that's like connected to our spirituality and our deities, and I have like a cool animal head. So, I've kind of appreciated being like, oh, we're stuck between here again, and it's okay. We're going to end up somewhere in the middle, and that's maybe kind of the beauty of like all these computational processes. So in the end, this kind of became like my personal totem for this project of saying Clovis points, like we're taking something smooth, we're removing volume to make something that's really cutting edge, and whether you're kind of doing that process with hand tools or doing it with Grasshopper, like that's a really human process. So we'll kind of give the payoff of this story. Here's the glamour render of how the tooling came out. People were really happy with the shoe. We didn't quite reduce the volume because the team decided to make the shoe a little bit taller and a little bit wider to kind of get more people into it, make it a little more democratic. But overall, I think that, again, the aesthetic result was way beyond what we could have imagined and really set us apart in the marketplace. This process ended up working with the design team to apply it across multiple shoes. That's like our marathon racer there in the center in gray, some training shoes, and really great. These did really great in market, and also had a great kind of use case with the athletes that we're lucky enough to sponsor. So this is 2024 in Paris. Alex E of Great Britain got to wear these in his gold medal triathlon race. So we'll try. There's so many people, all of our jobs, it's like so many people and so much expertise goes into it. So I like to think that it's like there's a little particle of me like running on the road out there, but it's, it's with all the other particles of, it's mostly Alex and then, and then the material engineers and stuff, but we're along for the ride. This is why we do stuff. We make cool stuff to make humans' lives better. So in the end, I've kind of spoiled it along the way. Didn't quite replace myself, but I definitely replaced the, the career I thought I was going to have with something that for me has been a lot more rewarding and interesting. Mostly, and this is kind of what informs my work now going forward. Maybe later, if I ever get a chance to talk to any of you again, I'll say, oh, here's the stuff I was working on right now that I can't show yet. But I've kept working in this way of exploring that tension of saying like, okay, like the computational process, like one, I design it, but then it helps me discover things. And for me, that's parametric design more often than AI, but maybe in the future it'll be AI, and it kind of pulls me this way, and then I push it that way. And I think tension's good in our jobs. So yeah, that's kind of my philosophy right now. I'll let you know if it changes. Happy to talk with anyone afterwards about footwear. We have a great New Balance team here too, if you want to hang out with them and talk footwear as well. So thank you.
To see the full recording of this and previous presentations, as well as information about future CDFAM events, visit cdfam.com.